Hello there, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Ryan Lord official podcast. It has been a minute since I've done one of these podcasts, but today we're joined by yet another incredible guest. We have Stephen Harvill. He is the author of The 21 Secrets of $1 Million Sellers. Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked. I'm looking forward to this episode. And Stephen, it's great to have you on the show. So I guess we can start by telling the audience a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and what inspired you to write the book.
I'm a scientist by education. Spent most of my youth surfing and playing tennis and trying to squeeze in a little academic advancement in between all of that. I started my company, Creative Ventures, 43 years ago. It's basically a strategy consulting firm. We only do three things. We either present our ideas, we teach our ideas, or we apply our ideas. So I've been doing strategy work for many, many years before the book. And it's funny you would use the word, what inspired you to write it. I just finished the chapter on the next book about the impact of inspiration on entrepreneurism and how the idea that something can happen, an event internal or external can happen that pushes your consciousness up a level, right? So I was sitting I had done the keynote speech for a gigantic sales meeting in Las Vegas. And there was a big awards dinner that night. I was sitting in the crowd, just hanging out at one of the tables, big rounds of 10 with the pre-plated food, a standard kind of conference dinner thing. They were giving out all kinds of sales awards, plaques and crystal things and different elements like that. And so I waited until the salesperson of the year was announced. And she went up there and she got this gigantic bonus check. It was kind of like one of those Tiger Woods, big like cardboard checks they just hand somebody for impact. And I was stunned at how big the check was. And I'm like, God. And I turned to a guy sitting next to me who I didn't know at the table. And I said, how did she win that or get that? And the guy looked at me and kind of furrowed his brow and said, well, she sold more than anybody else. Like as though I couldn't figure that part out. I said, I'm pretty wicked smart. I could figure that part out. I said, how did she do it? And the guy goes, I don't know. And around the table, no one actually knew how she did it. And worst of all, they didn't really care. And I thought that on the flight home, I was sketching out some ideas thinking, why wouldn't you want to know what your number one salesperson was doing so that you could start doing what she was doing, right? So that was the genesis of the idea for the book. And I created the stage presentation and the teaching presentation way ahead of the book. So I had already been delivering the ideas and stuff before I started the hardcore research for the book.
Before writing the book, like what patterns stood out to you when you compared, the top 1% performers with the rest?
If you're a science background, you're used to recognizing patterns, right? Patterns are staggeringly powerful. Almost every system and process has patterns. And if you understand the patterns of the system or the process, you can actually manipulate and control the process or the system. So patterns are foundational. All of that time when you were looking at the different elements, it wasn't just this. We had been looking at patterns in creativity. We had been looking at patterns in client experiences, a bunch of different things. So it wasn't just really comparing the 1%. It was utilizing pattern recognition, which we were good at, in a very defined field. Instead of everything, this was one thing. That's kind of how we looked at it.
Amazing. And do you believe $1 Million sellers are born with certain traits, or can anyone learn them?
No, I'm a big not believer in the born with, believer in the developed. I think they're not necessarily taught, but they're developed. And it's like if you give somebody a violin who's never played the violin before, and you give them some lessons and you come back a year later, they're going to be able to play a song. Maybe not like Itzhak Perlman or a great violinist, but they'll play a song. If you give somebody an American football and they've never thrown it before, they don't know how to throw a spiral pattern in it, right? But you give them a couple little things, let them throw it 10 times, and on the 11th one, they're throwing a spiral. It's learned behavior traits, learned skill sets.
Amazing. And out of the 21 secrets that you identified, which one do you believe is the most underrated? So the one that people overlook but has the biggest impact?
I think it's a gigantic overlooked everywhere. I think it's both overlooked and I think it's important at the same time. And that's the ability to understand the impact and power of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think of it as, and I hate this term, they refer to it as soft skills. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, what? It's not. It's a primal skill, right? It's the oldest strategy known to man. 60,000-year-old strategy story. So I would say it's the ability to understand what it means to craft and tell a story that then connects to value and impact. So I think stories is one of the biggest deals that gets sidelined.
Amazing. And on the flip side, which secret is the hardest for most salespeople to master?
Well, I think by nature, salespeople are miserable listeners. You know, they're always pitching, they're always
Mhm.
moving stuff. So one of the most difficult things is to become an active listener, right? It's not the passive kind of listening you do 80% of the time. It's when you turn your focus on and you're really actively listening to what someone's saying. You're engaged in the moment the whole time. And if you can develop a really good active listening skill set and be able to kind of turn that on, many times your client's going to tell you exactly what they want from you. And you just didn't listen in the past. So I think that idea, we called it in the book, Wait, Why Am I Talking? It stood
Yeah.
for. And I think it's that listening side of stuff.
I actually remember that chapter. And when I used to work in sales, one thing that management used to say is that you have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
It's exactly true.
Really, yeah. So make sure you really listen to the prospects before you talk. It's so important.
If you're learning a song on the guitar, right, and you have to listen, you have to listen to it a lot,
Yeah.
over and over again, trying to figure out what the pattern is. What's this? What's going on here? What's going on there? What are the fills doing? Along lines like that. That's the kind of listening that you're thinking about.
It's funny because my background is in sales actually. So I was a sales manager, business development manager. I've been an SDR before, so many different sales roles. I've worked at a Fortune 500 global company as well doing sales. So yeah, I've had like over 12 different positions. I've been a street fundraiser as well for Oxfam, so raising money outside, stopping people in the street. So a lot of like face-to-face sales, cold calling, and a lot of them have the same principles, but they're just applied in different ways.
Yeah, well, I think that you probably have way more experience in sales than I do. I'm a miserable sales.
Really?
So yeah, it is not a strength of mine.
So for you, you're more about the psychology.
No, I'm just more about the idea.
Okay.
I'm a miserable listener because I spend all my time talking. I've actually had, I think, only one technical straight sales job in my life. I was a realtor for a while up in the mountains of Idaho
Nice.
in America. And I think I sold one house. That was
Better than
it.
nothing.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Who would you say is your biggest client, and have you worked with like any celebrities or anything like that?
So I don't know. It depends on, I mean, that's such a, I don't know how to even define celebrity anymore, but we've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. My very first client was Disney,
It's massive.
followed by Apple not too far after that. So we've worked with everybody from, you know, we've worked with most of the major airlines, hotel providers, robotic companies, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, financial services companies, banks, resorts. One of the things I started when I started the company, you have two choices in a consultative kind of way, right? You're going to focus on a single industry and be like laser like there, or you're going to create ideas that have more mass appeal, and that allows other industries to come in and use the same kind of idea. And that's where we went. We developed what we thought were mass ideas, ideas that have appeal to any industry. So it allowed us to not only deliver our services to a lot of different industries, but to learn from all these different industries. And that's kind of how the company was set up. So we've worked with a lot of famous people. I met Steve Jobs when he was alive.
That's massive.
But I think that uh it's more the company than the individual that we work with.
So like, what did that process look like? So the process of them actually, having you talk at the company, like what did that look like from start to finish?
At the beginning, I would get invited to do major stage presentations, right? Keynote addresses at large meetings, what we call platform work or platform presentations. And from there, people would hear the idea, they would see the idea, and then they would just naturally gravitate or not to the idea. And we would generate then business from the people that were in the audience. or you would generate it from your writings, from your newsletter, from your blogs, from your getting the idea. And that's kind of how the original thing happened. It just kind of blossomed from someone seeing and hearing the idea first. So the launch pad for everything at the beginning was stage work.
Okay, stage work, right. That makes sense. Amazing, amazing. And I think your book actually reminds me a little bit of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, just because Napoleon Hill, he went and interviewed, some of the most successful people in America. I mean, there is two different sides to that story. Some people say that he did, some people believe that he didn't, but it's very, very similar.
Really, I just care about the idea.
Absolutely. How did you manage to actually talk to all of these salespeople? Like, was it difficult to kind of
Yeah,
piece that together? Or
that was part of the initial big strategy meeting of where are we going to get the base of data from, and
yeah,
and it turns out one of the secrets of getting in is simply asking, right? So I'll bet we had a 70-30 success ratio. 7 out of every 10 sales professionals we asked participated. And a lot of them came from my clients, right? Pfizer Pharmaceuticals has a gazillion salespeople, right? So we ended up leveraging the successes we had, and then that led to another person, which then led to another person. I think we're up to 480 or almost 500 interviews of salespeople by now, because I'm continually doing that, updating the data and information. But it was just asking, and it was hard at first, because salespeople, they don't want to stop selling to sit down and talk to somebody. So I would go there a lot of times. I had to go to the location and sit down with them, ride with them on sales calls, different elements like that to get their time, which was very precious to them. Same thing with the new book is on entrepreneurism, and it's the same thing. We just asked, and people said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. I got 45 minutes to answer your questions." Just ask sometimes.
amazing. So is the new book out or not yet?
No, I'm just sending off a couple chapters to my editor right now. I'm a little behind on it just because a bunch of other things popped up. But when I'm done here, I'll probably be sending the chapter on inspiration. I'm going to be sending the chapter on inspiration, which is called Having a Brain Orgasm, is the working title of the chapter.
I love it.
Yeah, I
Amazing.
hope
I
they
look
do
I look
too.
forward. Go ahead.
Yeah, they'll make me change that, I'm sure. But I think it's
So do I. Hopefully you can send me like a signed copy as well, because usually
oh,
every
yeah,
guest
I'll
that
be
comes
happy
on.
to. Send me your address, and I'll send you a signed book plate for 21 Secrets.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that'll be great.
So
That'll
yeah,
be that'll be
send me your email address, and I'll send that off to you.
amazing. I will do. And if you had to boil down all 21 secrets into just three that create the biggest results, which would you choose?
I would be prejudiced in the first choice, which is simple. We built our entire company around that singular principle of being able to simplify complex things. I think the connective nature of simple makes it a driving force in sales, right? If you can create a simple exchange, you create a connection. So I think simplicity and understanding what simple means would be one of them. I think storytelling is another one. You've got to be able to tell a good story. And another one that's interesting is the define how you treat your best customers, right? I call it save the whales. And
Save the
it's
world.
just methodologies around recognizing how important your top customers are and clients and the amount of focus you give them outside of just the sale. So I think those three probably, I don't know, maybe.
I really did like that chapter, because in the chapter you talk about, your well clients, which is your biggest clients, and how you should basically prioritize your relationship with them. And I love when you also spoke about how one sales professional would like color code each one of those categories. And
Yep.
then at every event, like say for example, if purple is the top level, they'll put out like purple ribbons, send purple invitations. And I'm like, that's actually really, really smart.
It's a great one, and especially purple because that's the color of royalty. So purple's
Yeah.
is a good color. But we use color all the time. That the board behind me, that's the new book, the layout of the new book, and so we're constantly color coding everything on. Over here, we've got everything
Wow.
coded on different elements too.
That's super cool. Yeah, I think for me, I was already familiar with, the well system, but it's usually like fish, shark, and well, isn't it? Like fish is like the smallest, shark is
Yeah,
medium, well is the largest.
yeah, it's really all Pareto's law, right? It's the 80-20
Okay.
law of Enrico Pareto. So it's the application of this strange mathematical formula that has no reason to be real, yet it finds itself real all the time. So that's, yeah, it's kind of just that same thing.
Amazing. And the next question would be, how important is mindset versus skill set in sales success?
That was one of your great questions that you sent. That's such a good question. Mindsets in psychology are in two categories, growth and fixed, right? There's growth and fixed. So let's eliminate fixed and let's just take growth. There are two mindsets within that category that I think are fundamentally important to anyone, no matter what field you're in. The first is curiosity. I think you have to have a curious mindset. You have to be interested in things. It has to spark you a little. And then the second element there is what I call willingness. And that's the ability that you're willing to try something new, to become an imperfect beginner and allow that to develop into your skills. So curiosity and willingness, I think, are key mindsets. But I also think you can teach almost all of the stuff is teachable, which is why you have sales training, right? It's to teach skills. If you were to build a career, there are three pieces of a successful career. The first is knowledge. How much do you know about what you're doing? The second are the skill sets that apply to what you're doing. And the last is the experience that you gain on your journey. Experience is the one you can't control that much because it's related to time. But skill sets and knowledge are right there for you. So I think in all of these things, I think that willingness and curiosity based on a skill set and knowledge that leads to experience, that kind of pathway is the right one to take.
Or as Napoleon Hill would say, the burning desire, right? You have to have that burning desire and that burning thirst for success. So I think that actually relates to what you were saying. And then what role does emotional intelligence play in being a top seller?
It's gigantic. Basically because salespeople spend their entire lives in a negative emotional well, right? They spend most of their time in no. And so if you can't handle that, and that's a mental toughness, right, that you have. It's a mental toughness. I was watching one of the tennis matches at the US Open yesterday. It was in the 5th set. And I was watching and I'm thinking, God, this kid is so mentally tough because he could have easily given up a while ago, and he didn't. And he ended up coming through as a winner. That emotional aspect is really, really important, that you can deal with the fact that you're going to be in no more than you're in yes.
Yep. Absolutely. And then the next question is, how do the best sellers recover from rejection and keep their energy high?
Early on, I think you have to look at sales groups in two different ways. The people that say sales is my job and the people that say sales is my profession. And if they are in the profession side of things, they will learn as they go along the emotional management aspect as part of the experience of those three legs of knowledge, skills, and experience. Part of the way during the experience, they will learn that. And they will either be capable from what they've learned or they'll go to a different kind of job. The aspect as you're moving forward is to be able to, the best way to do it is to say each one of those I've learned something, right? Each no has led me to an eventual yes. I should remember all of my no's. It's like the guy who kept the big no bulletin board in his office where he had every rejection idea that he'd ever had up there. And he looked at it all the time because all of those were going to help him prepare for the next one. That takes a certain mental toughness. And the interesting part is it's not gender related. There were as many tough female sales professionals as there were male professionals. It's a learned aspect over the experience of becoming a professional.
There's a really good, I think it's a series or a movie on Netflix called Pain Hustlers. And it's literally
about oxycodone.
Yeah, but like I think that's the movie where they had all of the women doing the sales and like they would appeal a lot to the men. And
one of my clients that I will go nameless hires ex-cheerleaders, collegiate cheerleaders.
Really?
Yeah, and they said we can teach them anything, but they're enthusiastic. They're excited. They bring this level of energy that it's hard to teach somebody, and it would be easier to teach them the product and how we do that than try to teach them how to be emotionally excited.
Has technology changed the fundamentals of selling, or do the same principles still apply, in in this modern era?
Okay, I'm an old man, so I'm going to talk about this from an old man perspective.
Let's go.
It is unbelievably beneficial what you can do with technology, but it also makes people lazy. And the laziness, is a default mechanism to technology. I'll send you an email. I'll send you a text message. I'll send you an email with an attachment. And that's why the top people get out of the office, right? They
Yep.
have interactions with people. So I think one of the things technology does is it opens the door for massive experiential type stuff, right? Visually, especially, which is a fundamental aspect for getting any message across, is to switch it to the visual medium, somehow making it visual. And I think that the benefit of that is staggering. But I also think that it makes people lazy. They just sit in their office and send emails, or that's not. So there's a little bit of laziness associated with it, where if you were a good professional, it would be a tool, not a crutch.
I love that one too. And with AI and automation growing, what human qualities will always keep the top sellers ahead?
There's probably no field that is embedded more in the human side of things than sales is, right? There are a couple different kinds of things, right? Are you in the need business or the want business, right?
Yes.
I have a car. I don't need a new car, but maybe I want a new car. That's the want business. Let's say I'm buying a house. I need insurance. I can't buy the house without it. That's a need. So want and need have different strategies associated with them along the human side of things. And if it's non-transactional, even if it's transactional, I think there's a relationship that happens. Like I have an intimate relationship with Apple technology because they were one of my first clients, and I've been an early adopter of all of that stuff. So even though it's transactional, kind of, I have a relationship with it. Whereas my financial advisor, I have a stronger relationship with. I have a personal relationship with. So when you're building relationships, that's a human endeavor. It can't be replicated, even though AI, maybe a better way to say this. I was at a meeting just recently where an AI expert got up and said, and had the AI on and told it, write me a short story like Ernest Hemingway, right?
Mhm.
Create a detective for me like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And the AI was able to do it. And afterwards, somebody came up to me and said, Steve, what'd you think of that? And I said, you know what the key word was? And they go, what? Like. You see, AI cannot create an Ernest Hemingway story like Ernest Hemingway if Ernest Hemingway hadn't existed, right? The human have
Yeah,
not done
that's true.
that. The genesis and spark of the idea of a human, it couldn't have done it. But I'm probably the last guy on the planet you want to talk about AI. It just doesn't have, I know it's going to affect the future, but it's affecting it now. And there are algorithms that tell you exactly what you want and things like that. But I'm more around, I think that significant sales are built on significant relationships.
I also agree. And how should younger entrepreneurs adapt your principles to the world of social media, content, and personal branding?
You're in the era, it's kind of like, you're in the golden age of entertainment, for instance, right? You can go
Yes.
upstairs, sit down at your TV, and you can stream 25 different really good services, not just the Netflix and the Primes but there's all kinds of stuff out there. My wife's a huge fan of British television, so we've got
Really?
BritBox to watch all the British shows.
Wow.
But I think you're in the golden age of being able to leverage all of that through social media. There's, everybody from TikTok to Facebook to Reels to Shorts to everything like that. It's the golden age. You're limited by how good you are at what you do in your imagination. And those are the only two things regulating it, really, how good
Yeah.
you can be. I've been studying some of the internet brands and YouTube stars that have launched and used their personality to create brands. I think you couldn't have done that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to have a plan. You need to be strategic, right? You can't just do stuff. The stuff you do has to have a reason for being done.
Absolutely. That's very, very wisely said. And moving on to $1 million habits now. What daily routines or habits have you seen top sellers constantly practice?
One of the things they're really, really good at is preparation, is being prepared, right? I always told somebody, I don't think you want to go in for surgery at the hospital and have the doctor wing it. He's just going to wing it. Well, maybe this is the appendix. Maybe it's a kidney. Hell, I don't know. Let's take it out. Or an airline
Yeah.
pilot, you don't want him winging it. You want him to be prepared. And they
No
use
pun
tools.
intended.
Yeah. Yeah. They use tools to be prepared. They have checklists and different ways they are prepared. We never do a call ever in which we haven't prepared what's called an advanced preparation sheet. And that means anytime we have a scheduled call, we'll have a sheet that's got a checklist that's got everything we want to get out of the call. We don't hang up till everything's done. We're prepared for that. So I think one of the things that the great salespeople do is they were prepared. They weren't going to prepare a story or a pitch on the elevator going up to the client's office. They were already prepared. So I think one of the things is in professionals is they prepare. So that's one of the things you saw all the time. The other element you saw all the time was their how protected they were of time. And we talked a little bit about that earlier, right? They have protected time in which they're not taking phone calls. They're not doing emails. They're focusing on the strategy for the next sale. Those kind of things I think were almost universal, kind of like the inspiration on the entrepreneur book. It's not necessarily the only ingredient, but it's there in almost everything.
Amazing. And what's your top 3 favorite books and then your top 3 favorite films?
Are we talking nonfiction books? Probably. Any
Especially like, I would say more so related to your line of work. So say, for example, for me, being in the world of business, my favorite movie is Wolf of Wall Street. And that's my favorite movie. And my favorite book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, so.
Yeah. I read 2 books a week. I read a nonfiction book and a fiction book every week. So for me,
let's do one of each.
Okay. No, I'll give you, and I'm a science, so I read a lot of science stuff. So let me not do a science one. I think if you're going to read something by someone, Malcolm Gladwell stuff is really good. Anything that Malcolm writes, I pretty well read. I think it's interesting. The other author, instead of books, I'll give you authors. Malcolm Gladwell and Michael Lewis. I think Michael Lewis is a brilliant writer, and I think Malcolm Gladwell is a brilliant writer. So from that end, then you want film. So I'm going to take a small sidebar. Move it over here.
Let's do it.
I have been to the movies every Saturday since I was 9 years old or 10 years old. I am a gigantic film fan, and I married the love of my life. And for 46 years, we've been going to the movies every Tuesday.
That's amazing.
8 night kind of. So I even have a program, a 90-minute major stage presentation called Why We Love the Movies. And every year in January, I do my top 10 bottom 5 list that I send to all my clients of movies. So for me to pick a movie, like it's very difficult for a movie lover to do that. It's like picking your favorite song. But I will tell you, you pick the Wolf of Wall Street. I'll do Moneyball.
That's a great one.
With Brad Pitt and Michael Lewis book and a Michael Lewis, kind of film. It's a great story of risk, of taking a very traditional business idea and turning it on its ear and believing enough in it to have all the crap that comes at you, you still don't let go of your belief. Mm-hmm. So that would probably be one that comes off the top of my head. I've already this year, I don't know how many movies we've seen. We've seen a lot.
What was your favorite one this year?
I loved F1, the movie about Formula One racing. I didn't know anything about it. I'm not a car guy. I don't understand how cars work even. But that was so interesting about Formula One that I've actually watched on TV like a couple of F1 races just because I had no idea what was going into it. So I really like that. That was about an 8.5 on a 1 to 10 for me.
Wow.
This year.
I need to check it out because I am a big fan of Lewis Hamilton. I really like Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of cameos. He's got some cameos in the movie. But when you watch it, just think to yourself, Brad Pitt was driving 160, 180 miles an hour. He did most of those stunts himself, kind of like Tom Cruise. That's insane. Yeah, it was insane. I would never do that. I can't even park a car, let alone drive a Formula One race.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays they have self-parking vehicles, don't they? So nowadays you can just press that.
I did that because I would use it all the time.
And
would.
do million dollar sellers approach their personal lives differently from average sellers, would you say?
There's certain ideas I call unicorn ideas
Yeah.
that sound really good, but they don't exist. Balance is one of those. If you take a system and put it in perfect balance, in chemistry, it's called a state of equilibrium, right?
Yes.
Everything in that system, there's no energy. It's just equal, right? Nobody wants an equal just sitting there, right? Perfectly balanced. It never is. And so I think sales professionals on the personal end, they're probably using different balance at different times, but they spend more time on their profession than they do on ancillary elements, right? That's one of the reasons they're so upset when you want to take them out of the sales field and talk to them, right? They say to themselves, no, 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 no. I eat what I kill. I can't do that. So I think this balance of professional life and personal life is a unicorn. And I think you need to find what works best for you and leverage that as high as you can. At the end of the day, your family and everything like that's the only thing that matters. So you need to figure out how you're feeding that.
Absolutely. And if someone listening today wanted to start acting like $1 million seller tomorrow, what's the first step that you'll recommend?
Start writing things down. Most people write stuff down. So like when I got your questions, I went through and I redlined all of them and I came up with, I said, oh, okay, that's a really good question. They don't write things down. If you want to prepare to be $1 million seller, let me make the recommendation I would make to you is just start doing one of the superpowers of successful people. And that is super successful people write stuff down. They have a methodology of capturing ideas and feelings. Let's say you want to define the skills from my book, right? So you just make a list of those skills and you say, well, all 21 of those don't fit me, but there are 6 that really fit me. Those are the 6 I'm gonna use as my skill base to start with, right? Or something like that. The first thing I did was in this whole process of pattern was we interviewed leaders and we did this whole thing on leadership called the DNA of success. Then we did sales. Now we're doing entrepreneurs. And while you're doing all of that and you're only asking them questions in a very finite field, things start to bleed over, right? In fact, it's probably the idea to do something down the road is what do leaders, $1 million sellers, and top entrepreneurs, what do they all share outside of their field? And one of those things, which is this really simple habit, is to write stuff down. I don't know how people do anything without writing stuff down. I learned in between the first book and the second book, I learned that not to use notebooks. Notebooks are the worst thing in the planet to use because you can never find anything in a notebook. Like if you had an idea and you went back, you'd have to go through all your notebooks. So at that point, I switched to 5x8 index cards. And now everything I do, everything I write, everything I have, I do on 5x8 index cards. So these are last week's.
Amazing.
That's a week. And so these are all ideas. Some of them I'll do, some of them I won't. I don't know. They were things that my wife always says that I'm easily fascinated. And I am easily fascinated. And so I'll take notes on all of these things and then I'll file them by what they are. Ideas like science ideas will go in the science file. Sales ideas will go in the 21 Secrets file. But I write everything down. I'm never without an index card and a pencil, ever. On the golf course, index card and pencil in my pocket. I think that's a simple thing to tell people to do. It's the only way an idea is ethereal. It's like fog, right? You don't write it down. Why do you think Da Vinci had all those notebooks? Why do you think Bruce Springsteen has 200 notebooks filled with songs he's never going to write? He's never going to finish. They're just ideas, captured ideas. So you need to have that. And I think that one really simple thing is a defining element.
Amazing, amazing. I will definitely start picking up some flashcards for sure. I think it is a lot better than having a notepad, as you said.
I don't know how anybody I have probably one of the cupboards, I'll bet I have 50 notebooks that I worked on over the years. I have no idea what's in any of them. I could pull one down and start going through it. But if you said, Steve, where's the recent ideas around the client experience that you've got? I can go to the thing, pull out the index cards. Here's all client experience stuff. So when I want to write a blog, I want to write a LinkedIn article, I want to, I have a monthly newsletter that goes to 40,000 people. I want to write something there. I don't have anywhere to go. It's all right there in these stupid little boxes. Primitive,
Wow.
analog, primitive, but it works for me. And I know a lot of people. I've got a friend that's one of the most gifted songwriters on the planet Earth, David Wilcox. And David does all of his ideas and stuff on his phone. He'll just pick up the phone and record it, right? That doesn't work for me. I need to have the physicality of drawing and writing and have the pencil in my hand. I only use one kind of pencil. I use one kind of pen. So I have all of those kind of things over the years. I've gotten down to that. Whereas David just picks up his phone and says, okay, here's a new song idea. I can't do it. It doesn't fit me. It fits him perfectly.
That's amazing. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I need to pick up some index cards. So after this, I'll be straight on Amazon and I'll order myself some index cards for sure.
Yeah, pick your size. I use 5x8 because I draw. Most of my notes are sketched, but I know a lot of people that use 3x5, so that doesn't matter. Just a way to
amazing. Go ahead.
An idea.
Yeah, no, amazing. I've got that part noted as well. I'll probably do the 5x8 as well because I like drawing too. It helps you to visualize.
Yeah, they're perfect for sketching.
Yeah. Amazing. And moving on to story and connection. So storytelling and connection. You talk a lot about the power of storytelling in the book. So why is it such a critical skill in sales?
I think it's a critical skill in just about everything. We are connected by story. It connects us. It's genetically programmed into us. And it's not complicated. But there's two pieces. There's crafting, not writing, not building, not constructing, crafting and telling. And those are the only two pieces. You have crafting, you're creating the story, and then you're telling the story. They have separate strategies. They are, if you want someone to understand something complicated, let's take, you were talking about the advent of social media. There are a number of scientists on social media whose purpose is to take very complex things and make them understandable. In the United Kingdom, it's Brian Cox. He's brilliant at doing it. In the United States, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, Brian Greene. These guys all take unbelievably complicated physics ideas and are able to relate them through story, and they simplify it so anyone can understand them, right? That's connection. And there is no tool, none, that will connect someone to your idea, to your product, to your service than your story. And they're coming at you every minute. I'll be in the movies and I'll hear something and I'll go, oh my gosh, I'll pull out my index card and in the dark, I'm just scribbling that. I said, my God, that's an insightful thing. That's great dialogue. That's elements along lines like that. And so I think from story comes connection. And from story and simplicity comes connection. And that's all you're looking for. You want somebody to listen to your story and go, I get it. Then you want them to say, I value that idea. Then you want them to say, I can apply that idea in what I do. That's the idea journey. I get it. I value it. I apply it. That's kind of that 3-part journey. And so what you're looking for, story gives you the first part of that. Story gives you, I get it. Because without that, nothing happens. You've seen in sales, I'm sure you've been talking to somebody and you're explaining something and you look at them and you can see it in their face and their eyes. They don't get it. They don't quite understand it. And you'll ask them, are we okay? And they'll tell you, they'll lie to you. They'll say, oh yeah, we're okay. And you go, I don't think we're okay. They've missed the connection point somewhere. It's too complicated maybe. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. Elements along lines like that. So I don't think there's a more powerful tool on the planet Earth than telling a great story. Were you a Game of Thrones fan?
Indiana Jones?
No, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Not quite, no, but loads of people around me are, but yeah, not so much for me. I couldn't really get into it, but Lord of the Rings I do like. Lord of the Rings is similar, isn't it?
There's a line in it by the actor Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion Lannister, where at the very end, the last episode, he turns and he says, there is nothing more powerful in the world than story. No army can defeat it. And that line that he uses in the last episode, I've used 1,000,000 times. It's true. That's the power of it. Nothing can defeat it.
So with this new book on entrepreneurship, I'm sure that in your network, you've probably got some, billion-dollar entrepreneurs or some billion-dollar sellers, like, or not so much.
Well, the idea of the book was, there are a lot of books about Richard Branson, a lot of books
Yeah.
about Elon Musk, a lot of books about Jobs and Wozniacki and Bill Gates. I didn't want any of those people. I wanted people like you. I wanted people, regular
Thank you.
people that started their own job based upon something that happened, right?
Yes.
They're not um they're not the people you see on TV. They're not the people in books. They're the regular people that started a landscaping business, that hung up their medical shingle, that write, that are authors, that are songwriters, that are actors, that are restaurant owners and sandwich shop owners. So I wanted a book about regular people. And so there aren't probably any billionaires in my book. They're just regular people that successfully launched a business based on certain principles. And they all shared the same principles at the beginning. They called it different things. They said it as different things, but it's all the pattern of success around entrepreneurism. And that was the idea for the book. I wanted regular people, and regular people are easy to find.
That's
I'm
very
not going to,
true.
Richard Branson's not going to answer my call.
Yeah, like that would be a lot more difficult. I'd love
Yeah.
to, eventually one day, come out there and like interview some of these people, do like a day in a life with some of these successful entrepreneurs or successful salespeople, where basically we have a camera crew, we follow them around and we just, see the day in a life and how they do things.
One of them is in both. I really only have so far one person that will be in both books.
Okay.
And it's the realtor that I talked about named Brandy in the book. And Brandy, also from an entrepreneurial standpoint, there is no person I have met in my entire life that takes better care of her whales than Brandy. I will get up around Thanksgiving in the United States, and there's a pumpkin on my front porch with a card
Wow.
that just said Great Thanksgiving. 4th of
Every year.
July, there's sparklers on my front porch. In October, she'll host this big Oktoberfest party at her house where only the people that she sold homes to or potential home buyers come to this party. It's legendary. And she would be somebody that would be good for you. She would be a good follow person, kind of.
Once you've mastered the art of selling, how do you scale that skill into leadership or building a business?
I've had a lot of people tell me, my editor, that the ideas that were in the book helped her in ways beyond sales. I think that the principles are kind of fundamental, right? They're not like, I'm not sure there's a single part in it where someone said, I never do that. They're mostly, instead, I don't do that. Instead of, I don't know that, I don't do that, so I should do that, right? It's more along lines like that. I think there are some universal aspects to whatever you do. I don't care if you're sitting in a cubicle selling blue-green algae, or if you are a surgeon or a nurse, or you own a liquor store. I think there's some fundamental things that help. And I think some of those are covered in the book.
And then moving on to scaling beyond sales, we have another question here, which is a final question. What's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when trying to sell their product or their service?
I think they have a level of assumption. They're passionately involved. They know their product or service. So they make an assumption in the sales process that I share that enthusiasm or I share that knowledge. And I don't. I have no idea. I was on a call last week where they were trying to define a project, and about 15 minutes into it, I stopped and I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's going on? I don't understand for 15 minutes, I didn't understand anything. So I think that one of the things is that level of assumption, the assumptive aspect of it. And if you realize it from your storytelling, that you're starting from ground zero a lot of different times, it'll make you a better professional.
Absolutely. Lovely. Stephen, it's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing, your wisdom with us all. And for anyone listening, if you haven't read The 21 Secrets of $1 Million Sellers, I can't recommend it enough. It's packed with so much lessons that you can apply right away. So, Stephen, where can people connect with you or learn more about your work?
Our website is creativeventures.com. So creativeventures, all one word.com. You can access newsletters, blogs, videos, ideas. It's all free. All that stuff. If you're interested in those kinds of ideas, that it's all there. You can subscribe to the newsletter from the website. Goes out every month. Has one idea and 3 actionable steps and an embedded video called Over Coffee. You can get the book anywhere in any form you want in about 9 different languages too. You can get that anywhere. It's audiobooks available, Kindles available, hardback, softback, all that stuff.
Amazing. And to everyone else that's watching, if you got value from this episode, please be sure to hit that like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you feel needs it. This is the Ryan Lord Official Podcast. Until next time, stay determined, disciplined, and keep that burning desire alive.